Hey there, fellow entrepreneurs. Welcome aboard the Ethical Scaling Podcast, your go-to destination for navigating the wild world of online business with integrity and fulfillment. Jay and Ben are going to be your trusty guides, and they're thrilled to have you join us on this epic journey. In this season, we're going to have a lot of fun connecting and chatting with some of the OGs in the online business space, giving you all their stories, the breakthroughs, the playbooks for success, and some unexpected gold nuggets. So grab your favorite beverage, cozy up in your favorite spot, and get ready to dive deep into the art and science of ethical scaling.
Confidence isn't a requirement, it's a result. Act first, confidence comes later. I'm super happy to have my good friend Angus today on the podcast. Angus, happy to have you here. I'm super excited for what we're going to go through today. And I picked up something that kind of aligns with you. Like I use the confidence kind of approach because I know you're a huge, confident, big, wise guy. So I think it's a good start for us. Angus, I think for the ones that don't know you, I want to make sure they get to know you today. In this season of our podcast, we want to be meeting the masters of the game. You've been in the industry for a long time, in this online service industry for a long time. You've been in the industry of working with business owners for much longer than that. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about your origin story? Where did you start? Your personal experience? I know you went through a lot, so I'm sure you have a lot of stories to share with us.
Sure. Well, we won't go back too far. Just, I was born at a very young age, and I'll start from just my corporate background. Back in 2013, I started an innovation association for Fortune 500 brands. All of our clients were big names like BMW, Coca-Cola, Ford Motor Companies. They're all focused on this crowd funding, crowd lending, crowd space, all peer-to-peer. So Airbnb, Lyft, Uber, TaskRabbit was all coming online. I ran all of the community side. I hosted all of our events. We did live events at different headquarters. So I was at headquarters for Walmart and Coca-Cola and several others. And so 74 companies under this leadership that I was a part of. And I started to notice different kinds of patterns in their lives of these senior leaders, to where they would make these innovative decisions for these companies and they would alienate an entire organization and basically put a bullseye on their back. And not a bullet in their back, but put a bullseye in the back for someone to put a bullet, I suppose. And I started to speak into some of those situations for some of my clients. And one day, one of them said, "Angus, you would make a great coach." And I said, "Thanks." I didn't quite know what that meant at the time. And I started doing some research. I'm like, holy crap, I love this. I could absolutely do this. And so in 2015, I started a podcast. From that, I took on my first client. So now I'm just under 10 years of working with senior executives in this coaching space, and made a ton of mistakes. We can go into some of my backstory if you want.
Yeah, I would
some
love
of my
to.
failures too.
Yeah, I would love to, because I think we can talk about the tactics later on. We can talk about some of the things you and I, like, so that people understand. You and I have spent hours on top of hours and top of hours talking about all of this. But I think it would be cool for our audience to get to know you a little bit better, like some of your experience, because people think, oh, like he's a coach, but what does he know? He hasn't gone through any turmoil or any challenge. Like, I know you've been through a lot. Like most people that get to know you today, they wouldn't say you went through a lot. I know you did. So I think it would be cool for people to at least get a bird's eye view of some of your personal challenges and things you had to overcome that I think actually made you who you are today.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll back up to my first business. Back in 96, 97, I started this nonprofit organization. It was a youth center focused on the arts, and we were teaching young people how to do graphic arts. We had a stage where we did music, and we fronted as a coffee shop. We promoted shows, dance clubs. Back then we had LAN parties, computer parties, all hooked up on LANs. We did festivals, and one of the music festivals that we promoted was a big deal throughout the city. And our headliner was a band called Train. If you remember back in the days of Meet Virginia and Drops of Jupiter, that was when they were first coming out. They went big. We lost $72,000 that one weekend because of thunder showers. Right before main stage, it just a deluge. We needed 4,000 people to show up and only 1,400 did. And that kind of unfolded part of my story and the fact that I didn't know how to ask for help. I was still arrogant and cocky. I was doing a good thing for the community, but behind the scenes, I was carrying the weight of trying to prove everybody I can turn this ship around. And $72,000 was a big deal for our little organization. And that turned into me getting, the self-ridicule I gave myself was shame and pain because it was getting harder and harder to breathe. I wasn't able to delegate. I didn't go to my board to ask for help. My wife started to despise me and said, go get a real job. And so I did what most of us do. I just worked harder.
Grind
60,
and hustle.
80, 90-hour work weeks, right? And then I started coping. I started drinking, and then I got involved in porn, and then I started sleeping around trying to cope with the pain. I blew up my marriage. I blew up the business. I blew up my sense of self. And so flash forward, it's 2003. I've been divorced. I'm sitting underneath my Christmas tree. I'm in tears, and I'm contemplating how I'm going to take my life. And I heard this voice that said, we're not done here yet. And that was the moment I said, okay, I'm just going to get counseling. And I always thought counseling was for crazy people, like people who have really lost their shit. Like they're going to be the ones, in counseling and therapy and whatever. And I was like, oh, I guess that's me. And
it's my turn.
Right. And I had my eyes opened to human behavior and psychology and self-awareness in ways that I never understood before. It's like, where has this been all my life? And that started the transformation. And I'll save some of the details, but that flash forward from 2003 to 2013 and working with corporate was 10 years of me learning, one step forward, two steps back, and then I met another woman and had to navigate relationships very differently. And all of these elements, I believe, were the tuition I paid to become who I've become. And so many times we discount the journey without understanding that every piece, whether it's a failure or whether it's a win, is there to teach us, to train us, and to show us a better way, if we'll allow it.
What would you say was like the biggest takeaway? Because I know you work really, really hard. And I understand there is a time and there is a place and there is an age and there is a meaning behind working hard and hustling and grinding, like nothing against it. But I know you personally, so I'm going to be biased if I give everyone my opinion. But I know you're very purpose-driven. How did that shift happen during those highs and lows you went through?
There were, I would say, like the gears in a car. There were seasons where you had to punch in the clutch and things kind of mellowed out while I tried to figure some stuff out. And then there were other times when you'd hit a next gear, you'd let go of that clutch and punch the gas. And so I'd say some of the first initial steps were, first of all, dealing with the pain of the past. So any one of us can look at our past and we'll carry these stories in our head. And those become those little gremlins, or as I say in my book, the shadows. The shadows that speak to you don't deserve, you're not worthy, you don't have what it takes. And these are the things that we carry when we go to advance our career or to launch a new product or to step to another, income level. And suddenly that little voice, that gremlin in your head, the shadow speaks and says, who do you think you are? And so learning the tools to navigate creating new stories for myself, to forgive myself, to give self-love, self-compassion, those were some of the first initial gears. Is like, no, all that stuff that happened to me is simply part of my story. And so I've learned that when you show yourself vulnerable, you give others permission to do the same. And so now for me to share my past isn't to me so much an act of courage as much as just an act of faith. I had this happen and now it's fact. And now from that, I'm just believing that whatever I share with you, you're going to accept me just as I am. And even if you don't, I'm going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You don't need that external validation.
Exactly.
I think one thing that you said, and this comes from plenty of conversations we had, like most people struggle when they feel uncertain. And you've went through massive uncertainty, like divorce. You had a daughter at that time. So not working for the corporate world, more like starting a business. You went through so much uncertainty. How did you handle that? Like going through all these moments of uncertainty that we all go in our life, in entrepreneurship, in our personal relationships as well. I think most people wait for the moment of certainty to take the necessary action. And I know that you have a different approach to that. Do you want to expand on it a little bit more?
Well, that would be, if I were to say there was a second gear, if the first one was getting through the imposter, the fear, and the shame, the second one would be facing this illusion we have in our minds of certainty. And what I learned through all of this is to believe in who I am, the outcome. So many times we, especially if we're like, the hyper, high achiever, like we have these ambitions, we can wield the future. We can make things happen by force of nature and force of will. And we do that to a certain level, and that talent, skill, and gift gets us to a ceiling. And then suddenly what once worked doesn't work anymore, and suddenly we're in question. So when we go to do something new, something different, something better, something bigger, everything comes into this like, what if I screw up? What if this is the wrong direction? What if this next step makes me look foolish? What will people think? And all of that's based in this quest and thirst and basically a lie that I can be certain what that's going to look like. And so for me, facing the uncertainty was a learning to trust my intuition, learning to trust my resilience, and learning to trust my agility. That whatever step I take is just the next best guess, and that will be data that will inform my next step, or my next step. And people don't understand. They do intellectually, but from a heart and belief level, it's that thing that like is kind of an intangible. You have to go through some things to start to understand the things.
There is something that I love and I apply to myself, and the most successful people I've got to know, they embrace humble humility, which basically what it means, I'm humble enough to know I don't know it all. So I know I don't know all the decisions. I know that I don't know all the outcomes, but I'm confident. I'm confident enough to know that I will figure it out. Whatever the outcome of that decision is, I'm going to be able to analyze, and I'm going to be able to make the next best decision. I think most people get stuck in that mental rut of not being able to even take the first decision, and they forget that not making a decision is a decision.
Yep.
And it's basically analysis paralysis. They just get in this never-ending loop that either gets them stuck and they don't do anything, or gets them to keep doing what they don't want to be doing. That's another thing that I know you see a lot when you work with business owners, C-suite executives, and people like that, is that they're waiting for your permission at times. And you and I talked about this multiple times. They're waiting for your permission to do something different. And that's interesting. We're talking about successful people that have all these big accolades, and they're still waiting for their high performance coach to give them permission to take a break, to go out on a weekend. Don't bring your laptop. Don't do any work. And we expect that people to be operating at high frequency and high level to have it all figured out. They don't. No one does.
Yeah. And I love what you said there, a couple of different things. One is giving permission is one of the things that I feel I help people do for themselves. Is like so much of our culture is built on being picked. Something outside of us gives us an opportunity. Someone chooses us, and we want to go to a college. We're waiting for that college to take our acceptance and let us come to their school. And then we try and get a job, and now we want somebody to pick us. But until we learn to just choose ourselves, That's number one. And then number two is that piece you said, having confidence in me is far more powerful than thinking I can have, and this is that myth, that lie, confidence in the future, because confidence can only live in the past. Mm-hmm. And so if we start to believe like, hey, I know I have, again, those resilience, agility, and capacity to be able to be successful, then now when I face something new, it's not me trusting the outcome, it's me trusting my ability that I can figure this out. Mm-hmm. And that takes humility. And this is a crazy thing because humility is a powerful substance, but most people think humility is weakness. Mm-hmm. But humility is power.
I think humility is not being sitting, like I like to call it, on top of Mount Stupid.
Yeah.
Because when you're sitting on top of Mount Stupid, you think you have it all figured out, and no one does. Yeah. Literally, no one I've ever met has it all figured out. We all have weaknesses. We all have places we can improve upon. We have some lack of self-awareness in multiple areas of our lives. So no one is perfect. And there is something, and again, doesn't need to be everyone's theme, but for me, I do believe in mastery. Mm-hmm. That's something that it kind of guides me in my own personal and business journey. I know if I want to master my craft, I need to embrace the suck. Yeah. And I need to stay in the process. It's those who stay in the game that win. It's not timing, it's not magic, it's not just luck. It's you being able to embrace the suck. If you look at martial arts as an example, most of their life, they're stuck before they move to the next level. And then there is a spurt of growth and they enjoy that growth and then they stay stuck again. And they're cool with it because when they're stuck, they're practicing. They're just cementing that new phase and they live well with that. But when we look back at our today's approach in our today's modern world, people don't feel good about being stuck. They start doing some random, stupid things, breaking things, putting out fires, destroying everything they have built because they feel uncomfortable with silence. And they feel uncomfortable with themselves, being alone with yourself, with your own thoughts, thinking about how much you would love to do outside business, but you become your business and business becomes you. And that's a very hard pattern. And I'm just bringing things to this point because I like giving our listeners a playbook for success. And I know you've worked with a lot of people, a lot of successful people. And one of the first things I wanted to cover with you, what would be your freedom framework? You've done that yourself. You have a beautiful family. You've worked with amazing business owners. What would be your path for freedom? Because I know a lot of these business owners, a lot of our listeners, multiple times in their day, in their week, they feel trapped inside their business.
Yeah. And every entrepreneur is building two businesses. I have clients who have $100 million health tech companies. I have other entrepreneurs on the other end of the spectrum who are just cracking six figures. It's all the same. And these two businesses, one is external and the second is internal. We know the external as the KPIs, the OKRs. We're going to go hit, all that. We're going to create all the systems and processes. So now we have SOPs. We're going to do our sales mechanisms. We're going to do all of our marketing messaging and get our ideal client profiles. And all of that is the external part of our business. But what's at the foundation, if you were to think of it like a pyramid, kind of like Maslow's pyramid, that's actually a second tier level. Because at the base and the foundation of that is actually the internal business. Because every ceiling you will face, every challenge that you will experience is an internal friction or resistance. And this becomes the mastery. Until you master the inner self, your efforts will only reach a certain level on the external. So the interior, that internal business, requires a belief, a mindset, new stories, new understandings, new ways to see yourself. And where I see people come into those ceilings we talked about is because I've made the money or I have the accolades, I have the success, but I still feel like shit. Why am I not fulfilled or satisfied? The thing that they struggle with is, this other transition from I built a business but I didn't build myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what we all need as human beings is a feeling of meaning and contribution to the world.
Do you feel like, is there an identity crisis because people think there is an identity crisis when you're not successful, but I've seen people going through an identity crisis when they accomplish that external success as well. I look at myself and I don't like who I see in the mirror. I don't recognize myself. It's like there is a gap, or whoever they became, it's not who they thought they would like to become. So their perception of success externally didn't match who they want to be internally, because probably they didn't do the work. They did all the marketing, they did all the sales, they did all the systems, they did all the financial models, but they never did any internal work to help them understand what they actually value the most, what lights them up, what fills their cup, what makes them feel alive.
Yeah. One of the questions I always start conversations with, I call it the Spice Girl principle. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want, right? And they'll say, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, and I don't want, and I said, that's not what I asked.
Mm-hmm.
What do you actually want? And most people haven't given themselves permission to get clear on what they want. And the irony is here, the identity that they have, I love that you're using this word, is they've attached their identity to their work, and their identity doesn't rely on their self. They don't see themselves as worthy, as deserving, as capable, or whatever in the context of just me. If you took away the money, if you took away the prestige, if you took away the titles and the accolades, who am I? And most really powerful people have to come to grips with what that means. I love what Jim Carrey said. He said, I hope everyone goes and gets everything they desire. They make all the money they want, only to find that it doesn't fulfill. Because that becomes the awakening of who am I really? And then what do I really want? Where's the thing that feels like true purpose for being in existence on this earth? And that's where I love to play. And that's where most of my clients come to me at that stage. It's like, okay, I've got all the things. Now what? Why am I not to this level of fulfillment and satisfaction? Why do I still feel miserable? And it's because there's this existential crisis that your identity is attached on what you do instead of who you are. And that's the unlock.
And it's the old be to have. People don't think about who they are. They just want to have something. And some of them go to the next layer, which is they know what they need to do to have what they think they want. But they don't understand that what they do and what they have will be a reflection of who they are. But also who they are will be a reflection of what they do and what they have. People think it's a one-way street. Like some people think it's I can just do and have, and then maybe I will become someone. Others say you need to work on identity first, and then you do, and then you have, which I'm cool with. But I think it's a two-way street. You can work on your identity so that you can do the right things and have the right things. But also, if you don't work on the identity and you do the other things and have the other things, it will shape your perception of self. This is why you feel that internal friction, because now you've created a perception of self that you don't enjoy and you feel misaligned. And I think some of them don't have the confidence, which is step number 2 that I wanted to discuss with you, to give people a playbook for success. They don't have the confidence to do the work that they know they should be doing, because it requires some confidence and requires some willingness to go through a little bit of pain and self-awareness to actually take things to the next level. If someone is struggling with having that confidence, what would be your recommendations? How you can build that confidence? Or is there any misunderstanding behind what confidence means?
Well, I'll start there. To my philosophy, confidence only lives in the past. It cannot live in the future, because there's nothing anyone ever does that they are fully knowing what the outcome can become. So here again, that certainty, uncertainty, friction, there are paradox. And then the confidence paradox is, if confidence can only live in the past, then what fuels me for the future? And this is that element of the identity in who I am, that faith, that belief, that trust in my resilience, in my agility, in my capacity to grow as a species. And so to get to that next level means you have to first let go of who you've been in order to give yourself the freedom to accept a new reality. So remember how we started this conversation when I said my growth was kind of like a car, you know, you punch in the clutch and you go in the next gear. It's an and both, just as you described. It's like you don't just go all in on self and then you're all good. I built the internal, I built the inner business. Now the external business
just
can
to manifest,
flourish, right?
Manifest, and things will happen like by magic.
Right?
And I think that's where people get lost. They do the internal work, which is valuable, but then they stop there. I've seen both. They don't do the internal work, or they do the internal work and they'll be sitting at their couch at home, looking at the window and thinking, why didn't I get all the success I want to get? Because now I did the internal work. Because it's a mix of both. It's not 100%. That one is better than the other. We need both. And it's an ongoing mastery process for everything you do.
And it's that shifting gears. And, you know, as we, you know, all of this kind of this theme is you're going to have those times where it's going to feel boring, you know, and it's in that season is when the roots are going down deep into the earth and you're actually building that resilience. You're building that character. You're building that nature of who you are. And then all of a sudden you're going to go to a next realm, and it might be something difficult, might be something challenging, or it might be something exciting and wonderful and amazing. But all of it is teaching and training you. So then you have to have this self-awareness. Gosh, we're getting really nerdy here and deep, and I love this. You have to have this awareness is like, oh, who must I be now? And you start to get to this place where you understand that the be do, you know, this part of who I am versus the way I express myself transitions from I do a thing to get a thing, which is transactional validation. I do this for me to feel good about myself. You know, most of the high performers I work with have some sort of chip on their shoulder. And that drove them to a moment of success in some form. Maybe they grew up in poverty, or somebody told them they never would become anything, and they're going to prove them wrong. Right? Right? And it serves you in some dark energy for a certain season, and then you hit this ceiling, and it's like, well, now what, right? So working with my clients is taking this nature that's within you, and you start tapping into this internal power, which is required action because of belief. So you believe a thing and you act on the thing. And so here's that be do, you know, kind of paradox, right? And this is that shift gear, shift gear, shift gear. And what happens is we start to understand that our nature is built around experience. And so when you tap into that inner business, you tap into supply, overflow, abundance, generosity. And now what you do becomes a fruit of that nature. Instead of you having to do a thing to get the validation, whatever, you already validated yourself and you no longer require anyone else. And I call this the nothingness. Nothing to gain, nothing to prove, and nothing to lose. And it's the most powerful person in any room. And when they walk in, people like naturally just go, who is that? Holy shit. Because that person knows who they are. And now what they do is a product of that. And it comes with far more power, far more momentum, and far more authenticity. And that's where the fulfillment, satisfaction comes from.
Do you think there is a moment then after going through all of that, they find some stability, but then they might become complacent as well? Because again, there is a place for a spurt of growth, then some stability, then some mastery, but there will be moments to also self-disruption, basically, so that you need to challenge your comfort zone a little bit as well. Whenever there might be moments and times to do that, but I want to just, no, I don't want people to think I do this work once and I'm going to be set for life. No, there's going to be an ongoing framework that you're going to be using multiple times throughout your life.
Yeah. And you just identified it. It's the framework, right? It's not the destination. And so it's a framework that I basically tell my clients, you know, we're going to do some work. you're going to get some incredible wins, some incredible momentum. And in about 6 to 8 months, we're going to take the framework and we're going to reshape it because you're ready for the next level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the next level and the next level. And every one of them is taking a step back and saying, okay, story I'm telling myself about this next step.
Mm-hmm.
What is the resistance I'm feeling? And by resistance, I mean, you have some kind of a fear, a self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Like that's the resistance. You're going to have a shadow voice speaking to you saying, oh, what is that? Oh, it's coming from some kind of story. I told myself, all right, well, let's tell ourselves a new story. Because your brain is like this supercomputer. It's the operating system of our lives. And all of the data we've taken in, whether it's something we experienced through our life, or it's something somebody told us, or it's perhaps the things we're listening to for media and entertainment and news, and all of that is just being peppered into our brain. And by the way, old modern media, our brain wasn't wired to be able to take in that much knowledge around the world and that much pain. Side note, you build that into this operating system because of that data. You believe a certain thing about yourself, and now the data wants to be validated like any kind of computer, and you'll seek to attract or create experiences, opportunities, relationships that reflect the belief.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're experiencing really shitty stuff in your life, it's likely because you're believing something really shitty about yourself. So when we change those stories, we upgrade the operating system, you start to attract higher level, higher frequency opportunities, relationships, and experiences. And they become a reflection of the ever evolving nature of how you see you.
That's good, because I do believe that even if you just go to basic human heuristics and biases, confirmation bias, it's one of the core drivers of the human being. Whatever you believe, you're going to find opportunities to confirm you're right. So if you believe something shitty, like you're just saying, your brain and your brain's reticular activating system, it's going to look for any opportunity out there to confirm your belief. So you better take a really good grasp at what your beliefs are and what beliefs you should have in place to attract and find and see the opportunities you're looking for. Because sometimes the opportunities are in front of you, but if you don't believe the right things, you're not going to see them, because your brain is not going to have enough computing power to see all the opportunities. It's going to narrow its focus to see the opportunities it makes sense for your brain to see. And that's the confusing part. Having such a powerful computer, we don't spend enough time coding or building the right software for our computer to accomplish what we want.
Yeah. And this is the thing nobody tells us, nobody talks to us about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
no, I mean,
we know it on some level.
You talk about
right?
Random things that are useless in school, but like learning how to be a good human, it's not something that anyone will take time in school to teach us how to do.
Yeah, there's this saying that says, the world is not as it is as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that same context, whatever we're believing about our worldview, our perspective, or whatever, that's the filter we're putting everything in. So I want to unpack that one more level. Is, let's say you have, the success. I have one client of mine. He super smart guy, strategist, built a $100 million company. He was both the CTO and the CFO because he's a control freak. Mm-hmm. And, he's constantly and perpetually working. And for his marriage, and he just had 2 young kids, he is not happy. Mm-hmm. And it's showing up through different expressions where, alcohol is a big piece of this. He's gambling. He's in Vegas. He lives in Vegas, and he's at these big tables where one call, we were having a session, and he said, last night I lost $300,000 in a poker game. And then 2 weeks later, he's like, oh, I'm up. I won 425 last night. And he's playing at tables with celebrities and, big names, whatever. And of course, this is damaging his credibility with his wife and the friction. And so our work together over the next several months was, where is some of this stuff coming from? And what we discovered was, this is a guy who is bored with the business because he's become so good. He's controlling everything, and that's kind of taxing. And furthermore, the adventures that he's having to gamble and to drink, there's some sense that it makes him feel alive in that risk profile. I was like, oh, well, let's dig into that. Where's that coming from? We uncovered that what he was doing paid the bills, but it wasn't paying his heart. It wasn't fulfilling, right? So within just a matter of weeks, we put up a job description, and he started saying, he replaced the CTO role. He replaced the CFO role. He ended up taking on a board position. So now he only come in once a month, and now all of a sudden, the things he really wanted to do now became possible. Now he could spend time with his kids. Now he could get into healthier living. He didn't have the stress and the anxiety he was coping for. And what we found out was his strategic mind loved playing poker. So he became a professional poker player. And now he's up over like $800,000 on the WSOP, World Series of Poker tour. And he travels all over the world, getting to do the excitement, getting to take his family, getting to eat all the foods and experience all the things, all because he changed a narrative of how he saw himself.
And how he should be living his life. He was living by everyone's terms, not his own terms.
100%. These were the expectations everyone had of me. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I should do. Instead of, what do you want to do?
The time I asked that question to myself, it was shocking to my family. I come from a very poor family. They work really, really hard to give us all opportunities. And I'm not a victim. I'm very glad all the opportunities were given to me. And imagine you being an engineer coming from a very, very poor family. And you come to your mom and say, hey, mom, I quit. It's like, you what? I quit. It's not fulfilling. It's forcing me to become someone I am not. It's forcing me to become average. And I can be the best. And what I'm doing is not giving me the opportunities to be the best. So I'm going to go all in on entrepreneurship. She thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you have some kind of mental issue. You need to do some work. You're not thinking right. And I was like, no, it's done. I already submitted everything, my resignation letter. I'm done. I'm going to stay there for another 2 months. And then I'm going to go all in on my projects. And I'm going to make them work. And again, confident humility. I didn't know it all, but I knew I could figure it out. And now, 80 years later, taking her to the best restaurants, buying her trips to fly around the world, getting her to be part of our process of building a new house and helping us select things inside. She loves it. She loves it. But I had to break through the narrative that was planted in my brain that you should do whatever everyone does, accept the average, do the average, don't be loud, don't aim to be the best, don't try to accomplish too much. Why? My question started to be like, why? And I think the trigger moment for me was when my father passed away, and I was like, no, I don't want that to be my narrative. He worked hard for 50 years. He retired, and he died the same year he retired. He didn't get to enjoy his retirement. I don't want that to be my life. I was working 14, 15 hours a day, 2 jobs, relentlessly. Didn't burn out, get happily enough. It's not easy for me to burn out, but I was feeling that I had no soul. So I'm sharing this story for people to understand that all of us have gone or will go through a moment that we have to break through the existing narrative, and we need to think, what's the narrative I want? What's the process I envision? What do I want to accomplish? For me, it was getting married, building the house, getting the next stage, which is going to be kids. Those are the 3 things I want. Remove everything else, remove the money, I'm going to be happy. I got married, the house is on its way, we're going to get kids, I'm going to be happy. I don't care how much I have, how good the business is, and I do love my business and I do love what I do, but the business is a vehicle. The moment I understood that the business was not the goalpost, and it was a vehicle, I actually got to enjoy business more.
Yeah.
Because it's play now.
Come on. And, one of the things that, if we're talking about all these paradoxes, there's another one I'll give you is what you said, humility.
Mm-hmm.
Humility is, in my book, nothing more than being fully you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not weakness. It's not playing small. It's not hiding in the shadows. True humility is actually yielding yourself to the greatness. It's yielding yourself to the potential. It's yielding yourself to who you are actually born to be. And true humility is to let go of those expectations, to let go of all the shoulds and the woulds and the coulds, and just be you. Let your light shine. It was the quote that says, "Who are you to play small? Who are you to be quiet and silent?" The quote is escaping me now, but it said something to the effect of, "You should shine as children do. You were born to be great."
Mm-hmm.
Total paraphrase, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so true humility is yielding to that shine, yielding to that light.
Mm-hmm.
And if more people would do that, we would actually have a much more healthy environment. And what incredible things would come into the world.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're not allowing ourselves to live our best life with all the resources we have. And that's painful because we are at a point in our society that we have as much as we need, as many resources as we need. We all could be living an amazing, fulfilling life. But not everyone does. I actually would risk saying that it's just decreasing over time. There is a vast majority of people that could be living a great life that they're not, and they get lost. And as soon as they get lost and they don't get help, it's going to be hard for them to stop digging, and then they get just stuck inside that hole, and they can never leave that hole. I've seen that multiple times, and it's kind of sad, if you will, because when I look back at my parents' time, they didn't have all the resources I had. They didn't have all the resources I have now. So it would be really ungrateful for me if I didn't live a good life, having all the things I have access to. And that's the thing. Like I worked hard, I earned it, and now I'm returning it. Because that's my next step for the contribution side we'll talk about. Now I return it. Either could be for kids in need, providing great experiences for my mom, great experiences for my nieces and nephews. Now it's my turn to give back. I've earned enough from a success standpoint, not just a monetary standpoint, that I now can start giving back to others and giving them an opportunity to actually see there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's worth the internal work to actually get to experience things they thought they would never experience. Like one of my nieces the other day, she was like, "I would love to travel the world." And I was like, "We're going to make sure that we're going to support you with knowledge, direction, ideas on how you can become a really good professional, make enough money for you to travel the world." If that's your, she's 8. She's 8 and she's already like, because she sees that we travel a lot and she wants to travel as well. She was like, "I would love to go to Brazil. I would love to go to France. I would love to go to New York." And I was like, "You're going to do all of that. And I'm not going to give you, but I'm going to help you with all the tools you might need." So it's just very interesting for me to see when you move from scarcity to abundance, because that's also a big mindset shift. Things literally happen when you do the right things and you care about the right things. And we could go on for hours, and I have some rapid fire wisdom that I would love to go through with you. What's, in your opinion, the biggest misconception about confidence?
That you need it to do anything, because you don't. Confidence comes later. You do the thing and then you're like, "Oh, I can pull that off. Look at what I just did. That's amazing. Look at me." And you
then
start
you feel
to believe
confident.
yourself. Yeah, then you feel confident. But now it's the next thing. It's like, here we go.
But now you've proven yourself that you can do it once, you can do it twice, you can do it 3 times. And that's the thing for me that resonates with me a lot, because people are like, one of the things that I'm jealous about you is how confident you are. How confident I am. Do you understand how many things I've done without confidence in my life? More than I did with confidence. I can tell you. Why? Because I knew I needed to get them done. Confidence was not even a part of the equation. And what's one belief entrepreneurs need to discard?
The one belief, oh God, I have 14 in my head. I'm going to say The one belief is believe that you deserve. You deserve to be here. You deserve to be in that room. You deserve to be at that income level. You deserve to have that success. You deserve to be happy. You were born deserving. Not because of anything you do to earn it, but simply because you are.
And what's a habit that has transformed your life?
I have a tool I call the 10-minute motivator, which is a daily practice of just reminding myself who the hell I am. And I have it here written on my wall. It's King Black Bull, the Alchemist is my identity and how I show up in the world. The Black Bull is the bull in a china shop that can walk in and break shit when he needs to, or he stands on the hill and just his prowess, you can see his power. And the alchemy is the alchemist is where I just take the chaos and the crazy, or the unknown and the uncertain, and I can create a path. It's just a gift I've been given, is to help people find that path. And then the king is to remind myself that I am in royalty, dominion, authority, power, and glory. And then I have a whole written piece here that talks about what my beliefs are and how I show up for my wife and how I show up for my kids. And one of the things, especially as high performers, we forget how far we've come, and we don't give ourselves credit for that space that we've traveled. And this is a constant reminder that I think most of us don't do, is just to remind ourselves who we are and the journey we're on.
Love it. And what's one book, other than yours, of course, that changed your life or changed the way you think about your life?
Most recently, I would say 10X is easier than 2X. Everyone needs to read that. But the one that really changed my life, that actually brought me into this whole world, was a book called Wild at Heart, which talks about how we all quest for a journey to adventure, a princess to rescue, and a purpose, a cause to fight, and a battle to win, a princess to rescue, and it's a purpose to live. And that was when I went through all of my darkness and I started realizing I was focused on all the wrong things.
If there is one takeaway from our conversation today, what would you want that to be for our listeners?
Oh gosh, I would go back to that deserving, but I would say waiting on confidence for the next thing that scares the shit out of you is the wrong move, but take the step anyway. It was Joseph Campbell that said, "In the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure that you seek." So whatever it is that's got you second guessing, that self-doubt, is the path. It's leading and guiding you. It's not trying to push you back into a box.
Love it. And again, I think we will need to do a second part of our series together. But if people want to connect with you, they want to learn more about what you do, about your book, what would be the best way for everyone to connect with you?
Just track me at Angus Nelson on all the things. I'm at Angus
LinkedIn,
Nelson,
Instagram, everywhere.
Yeah, all the things is Angus Nelson. I'm one of the few, and I've scalped them all. But I would say probably LinkedIn's probably the primary piece to follow.
Love it. And what about the book?
It's currently titled Confidence Comes Later. It will be coming out in, it looks like October of this year is what the publisher is saying. So fingers crossed, all that's going to fall into place. And it will be available digital form probably by this summer. I'm going to release the digital form, the Kindle, before I release the hardback.
Love it. Love it. I would recommend everyone going through it, because I know you well enough to know it's going to be full of gold nuggets, and it's going to be funny, because I love your humor. So I think it's going to be entertaining enough for people to not feel bored when they think about high performers and mindset and stuff like that, and beliefs and identity. I think they're going to have a really delightful surprise, because I got some perks. I read a little bit of the book already.
Yeah.
So I got all the perks. So I'm not going to spoil anything that is inside the book. But I want to tell you all, I just want you guys to remember in this path, in the entrepreneurship world and all the things you want to accomplish, remember what's going to be important for you from an internal alignment. Internal alignment is going to be key and is going to be critical. And the business growth you seek will naturally follow when you know what you want to accomplish that goes beyond the material goals and the successful business you're trying to accomplish. And that's the thing I want everyone to remember. And like I always do for every single episode, I want to wish you all a fulfilled life and a lot of good experiences. And I hope you achieve all the things you envision. And again, if you need some help with your internal alignment and breaking through some of your old patterns, I know that Angus could be a really good support for you. Angus, it was lovely to have you with us. And I'm sure we're going to do another one in the future.
Well, thanks so much. Muito obrigado.
Angus is also in Lisbon, so he's practicing his Portuguese. We didn't have time to talk about his whole experience moving from America to Portugal, but we'll save that for the next episode we do together. Angus, again, lovely to have you here, and we'll see you again in the future.
I appreciate you, Jay, and all that you do.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Ethical Scaling Podcast, The Masters of the Game. But before you go, remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode packed with juicy insights and a sprinkle of laughter. If you enjoyed today's show and want to spread the love, leave us a review and share this podcast with your fellow business mavens. Together, we can create a ripple effect of ethical growth and impact that reverberates throughout the digital cosmos. Until next time, keep scaling ethically, keep dreaming big, and never forget to find joy in the journey. This was Jay and Ben signing off with a wink and a smile. Catch you on the flip side.